All right, so for this Function Friday video, I wanted to talk a little bit about logical comparisons in Power Automate. Um, so I've got a flow here, and I'm going to go through the various comparisons and logical operators that Power Automate has available. And if you've done any programming language or Excel or anything like that, they should be fairly familiar to you. As programmers, we're often we think about logical comparisons, with a lot of languages use things like that, or if six greater than five or whatever it might be. Uh, you have to do it a little bit differently in Power Automate. They use it's a lot more like the way Excel works, where you have commands. For instance, starting with the and command. This one basically checks to see if both options that you put in are true. So if I put in true, oops, true, true, then this would return true. If I put in true, false, this would return false. Um, if I did false, false, that would return false as well. And of course, you can embed things as well. So if I have, and, then I can put another and inside and say true, true. This would return true, or sorry, this would return false because the first one's false here. This would return true. So you can embed them that way, just like you would with most any language. So and is pretty straightforward, and then you've got see, not, um, which is basically the opposite of and. So and then with not, it's kind of the opposite effect here. So it checks to see if the expression is false, and if it is false, it returns true. So this would actually, not true would return false, not false would return true, that kind of thing. So it's kind of, you have to think a little bit backwards in your head when you're working with not. Um, we've got like equals, which is the next one. Obviously check to see if two things are true. So I've got a couple of variables that I put in here. One's variable integer a is 5, integer b is 10. And if I come down in here and I say, let's get rid of that and just say equals it's easier to put it in this way. So if I do equals integer b, integer a, because they're not equal, that would return false. If I were to put equals true and 1, those are both because true basically evaluates to a 1 when it's doing this kind of comparison. This would return true. If I did, there, I could do comparisons of two strings and do there, that would return false because those are not equal. And it's case sensitive, so if I did there and there, that would also return false because those are not equal. So equals, it's pretty straightforward. You're just comparing those two values. The next one that I want to kind of look at is or. So if either expression is true, then it returns true. So if I say or true, false, this returns true. If I return, true, true, it returns true. And then if I did false, false, then it would return false because neither of those is true. So again, or is pretty straightforward and, kind of the alternative to and. The next one that I want to look at is like the greater than or equals to, less than or equals to. So you've got greater and you got greater or equals, which basically work the same way. Just if they're exactly the same, then it's true. So we've got like greater. Start with this one. You can compare a couple of values. So again, I've got my two integers. So I've got b, which is 10. And then, so the first one is the one that you're comparing. And then the second value is the value that you're going to compare it to. So if I did this, so integer b is 10, And actually, it might be easier if I just did it this way um, instead of using those variables. So if you did like greater than 10.5, then that would be true because 10 is greater than 5. If I did 5.5, this would be false because it's not greater than. But if I did greater or equals 5.5, then that would be true because 5 is equal to 5. Um, then, of course, you got the less and less that or equals, and those work the exact same way. It's just the opposite. So less 5.5 is false, less 5.10 or 5.15 is true. Less or equals 5.5 is also true. So that works pretty much the same way. And then the last one of the logical comparisons that I want to highlight is the if statement. So this is a little bit different. This is saying if an expression is true, then we want to do something. And if it's not, then do something else. So, or, return a value, not anything. So if I say, and if, and then I put a logical comparison into it. So say if equals 5.5, then I want to return, I could do true or false. So in this particular case, this evaluates to true, so it returns true. And if I were to put in 5 and 50, it would return false. But I could put anything in here. I could say, uh, so in this particular case, I could return a couple strings. So this evaluates to false, so it would return the we have failed response. And if I put in equals 5 then it would return the we are awesome response. So you could put in whatever values that you want into here, and if the first one is true, or the evaluation is true, then we return the first value. Otherwise, we return the second value. So if kind of builds on all the logical comparisons and turns it into uh, a response, a set of values. Now, a lot of people who are coming from software development backgrounds, you get into the habit because in most languages, if I'm doing this, I'm doing something like if 5 equals 5, or 5 equals 5. Depending on the language, it might be 1, 2, or 3 equal signs. You can't do that in Power Automate. You have to use the logical expression functions that they have there. And this is the biggest mistake that I'm constantly making when I'm working with this stuff is I'm always trying to, the first time I'll do it, I'll do this, and then I'll do update, and it's going to say, oh, you've got a problem here, and then I go back to, oh, crap, that's right. I have to use the equals command kind of thing. And you can see that's accepted, fine. So that's really all there is to it. The comparison operators or the logical comparison operators are there in the functions. They're also, very common in a lot of the other components. So we've got like under the data operation, we have the condition, or not, it's not under data. It's under control. We have the condition function, which kind of builds into those, but it uses a different way. So, say if 5 is equal to, and it gives you a bunch of different ones here, which are essentially the same thing, except it also can do string evaluations. If it starts with a particular thing or doesn't start with it, then you can include that as well. So if you need to do something like that, then a condition action is better than using the logical operators to get the result that you want. So if I do this, if like 5 equals 5, then it would take the true branch and the false branch. So that kind of builds on that logical thing and puts it into the various actions. That's all there is to it. The logical comparisons. It's very, very straightforward, very easy to implement. You just gotta, especially if you're coming from that programming background, you got to get out of that mindset of using those equal signs and use the logical one, or use the conditional operators that are in there, the logical operators. Another one that I kind of tend to do when I'm working on these kinds of things is I might remember this, but if I'll do something like sometimes I get in the habit of doing like dot equals because I come from a C# background, and it's like, oh wait, no, that's not right. No, it's just equals, and you put in the two values there. So that's it. It's pretty, like I say, pretty straightforward, easy to get started with logical operators. Thank you.